Welcome to English with Zenko Master. Get ready to learn something new today.
I was packing my bags when the power went out. It was late evening. The room was dark, but I didn't stop folding clothes. I had made my decision, and no small thing was going to change it. I kept moving, even though my hands were shaking. The silence made it easier to think. I had spent almost 2 years in that apartment. It was where I thought I would start a new life. But now I was leaving, and I didn't even feel sad. I felt empty. I had given everything to someone who never gave anything back. His name was Elliot. He came into my life when I was tired of waiting. I had been single for years and felt stuck. Everyone around me was moving forward, getting married, finding jobs in bigger cities, building something. I was still in the same town where I grew up. One afternoon, I saw Elliot at the train station cafe. He was sitting near the window, working on a laptop. I took the table next to him. It was the only seat available, and I needed to charge my phone. We exchanged a few words. Nothing special. But then we kept meeting at the cafe, at the bookstore, at the grocery store. Soon it didn't feel like chance anymore. We started talking more. He was smart and calm. He listened to me in a way that felt new. He wasn't loud or full of big words. He asked questions and waited for the answers. He said he liked how honest I was. I told myself he was different. At the time, I worked at a small learning center. I helped students with English homework. The hours were long and the pay was low, but I liked the kids and the staff were kind. I had a stable life, but I wanted something more. Elliot spoke about change. He had lived in many cities. He said he wanted to open a small language school in another town. He asked if I would come with him. He said we could build something meaningful together. I didn't say yes at first. I asked questions. He answered them all. He told me he had saved some money. He said he already found a place to rent. He showed me pictures of a quiet town with old trees and clean streets. He said he believed in me. I wanted to believe in him too. Everyone told me to be careful. My parents said I didn't know him well enough. My friend Maria warned me not to rush, but I had always played it safe. I had never taken a big risk. This felt like a sign. So I gave notice at work. I told my family I was moving. I packed my things and said goodbye to the town I had always known. I followed Elliot into a new life. The town was smaller than I expected. It had charm, but it also felt quiet, too quiet. We moved into a small flat above a bakery. The room smelled like fresh bread in the morning, which I liked. For a few weeks, everything felt light. But things changed quickly. The school never opened. Elliot said there were delays. He blamed the local office. Then he said the rent for the space was too high. He promised he would find something else. But days passed, and then weeks, and still nothing. I found a job cleaning hotel rooms. It wasn't easy, but I was used to working. I started waking up early, walking to work, and coming home tired. I paid for most things, groceries, electricity, internet. Elliot stayed home and said he was thinking of new plans. Some nights he didn't come home at all. When I asked him where he had been, he said he needed space. He said I was being too emotional. He said I didn't trust him. I felt like a burden in my own home. But I stayed because I had left everything for him. I didn't want to fail. I thought maybe if I worked harder, things would get better. One evening, I came home early and saw him standing outside with another woman. They were close. They were laughing. I stood behind a tree and watched them for a minute. Then I turned and walked away. I didn't ask questions. I didn't want to hear more lies. That night, I didn't sleep. I stayed on the sofa and stared at the ceiling. I thought about my old job, my family, my small town. I thought about how I used to feel like I mattered. Now, I felt invisible. The next day, Elliot came home and acted like nothing happened. I asked him if he was seeing someone else. He didn't answer. He looked tired and bored. He told me I was overthinking again. Then he went to bed. I sat in the kitchen for hours. That was when I knew I couldn't stay. I had already lost too much. I didn't want to lose myself too. I started saving quietly. I cut back on food and stopped buying anything extra. I worked more hours when I could. I didn't say a word to Elliot. I acted like everything was fine. Inside, I was building a way out. A few weeks later, I had enough for a train ticket and 1 month of rent back home. I found a small place to stay near my sister. She said I could come any time. I hadn't seen her in almost a year. I told Elliot I was leaving on a Friday. He looked surprised. He didn't ask me to stay. He didn't say goodbye. He just nodded and went back to his room. I packed my bags in silence. That's when the power went out. It felt like a message from the world. I stood in the dark and thought about every choice I had made. I had left everything I knew for someone who couldn't even say goodbye. I had trusted the wrong person. I had chosen the wrong path. But I wasn't the same girl who had left home. I had worked hard. I had survived loneliness. I had kept going even when I was hurt. I was still here. And I was going back, not as a failure, but as someone who had learned. As I stepped out of the apartment for the last time, I felt the night air on my face. It was cold, but fresh. I took a deep breath and walked down the stairs. I didn't look back. Before I share the rest of my story, could you please tell me where you're from? It gives me strength to know there's someone out there who listens to me, who understands me. It means a lot to me. The train was quiet as it moved through the countryside. I sat by the window, holding a warm cup of tea. The sun was setting, and the fields outside looked golden. It should have felt peaceful, but I couldn't relax. I kept thinking about the past year, the decisions I had made, the signs I ignored, the promises that meant nothing. I had left so much behind, and for what? I didn't even feel angry anymore. I felt tired. When I arrived back in my hometown, my sister was waiting at the station. She hugged me tightly and didn't say anything. I felt safe in that moment, like I had finally reached a place where I didn't have to pretend. We walked home together. She had prepared a small room for me. It wasn't much, but it felt like a gift. I sat on the bed and looked around. There were clean sheets, soft lights, and a small chair by the window. I had missed these small things more than I knew. Over the next few days, I rested. I ate proper meals, slept better, and listened to my sister talk about her life. I didn't speak much. I wasn't ready. I needed time to understand everything I had been through. People in town asked about me. They wanted to know where I had been. I gave simple answers. I said I had moved away and come back. That was the truth, even if it wasn't the full story. One afternoon, I went for a walk through the park near our old school. I sat on a bench and watched the children play. Their laughter reminded me of a time when life felt easier. I used to come here with friends after class. We talked about the future and believed we had so much time. I had forgotten that feeling. The next week, I started helping at a small cafe not far from my sister's place. The owner was a kind woman who needed someone to cover a few hours each day. The work was simple, taking orders, cleaning tables, serving drinks, but it gave me a reason to get up. I didn't tell her my full story. I didn't need to. She let me work quietly, and I was grateful for that. Each day brought a little more light back into my life. I began to smile again, even if only for a moment. I still had heavy days, but they came less often. One morning, I was cleaning the front counter when someone walked in. It was a man around my age, with short brown hair and a calm face. He asked for a coffee and sat near the window. I brought him his drink and went back to work. A few days later, he returned. This time he stayed longer. He seemed to enjoy watching the people pass by. We exchanged a few words, nothing deep. But something about his presence felt quiet and safe. His name was Aaron. He worked at the bookstore down the road. He said he liked slow mornings and rainy days. He didn't ask too many questions. He didn't try to impress me. That made me feel comfortable. We started talking more whenever he came in. Nothing serious, just small conversations about books, music, and favorite meals. It felt nice to talk to someone who didn't expect anything from me. I didn't tell him much about my past. I wasn't ready. I was still learning how to be myself again. One afternoon, Aaron came in late. The cafe was empty, so we talked a bit longer. He asked if I wanted to visit the bookstore after my shift. I said yes, without thinking too much. We walked slowly through the quiet street. The bookstore was small and warm, filled with the smell of paper and wood. He showed me his favorite corner, a shelf with travel books and old maps. He said he liked to imagine where people had gone. That night, I sat by my window and thought about how different he was from Elliot. There was no pressure, no big talk, no promises, just quiet kindness. Weeks passed, and Aaron and I saw each other more. He never pushed, He never made me feel small. He asked about my day and remembered the little things I said. I felt seen, but in a gentle way. One evening we sat on a bench near the river. He asked why I had moved back. I looked at the water and stayed quiet for a moment. Then I told him part of the truth. I said I had followed someone I trusted, and it didn't end well. He didn't ask for more. He simply said, "I'm glad you came back." That small sentence meant more to me than he probably knew. I wasn't in love. Not yet. But I was healing. I was learning that my past didn't have to shape my future. I had made a wrong choice, but I didn't have to stay stuck in that story forever. One morning, I walked past a shop with a sign that said, "Help Wanted." It was a place that sold school supplies and simple gifts. I went inside and asked about the job. The woman gave me a short interview and asked me to start next week. I accepted. It wasn't my dream job, but it felt like a step forward. On my first day, I wore a simple blue blouse and tied my hair back. I looked at myself in the mirror and saw someone I almost didn't recognize. I had changed. Not just outside, but inside too. I was quieter now, more careful, but I was also stronger. I still thought about Elliot sometimes, not with anger, but with distance. He was part of my story, but he no longer controlled it. I had made mistakes, but I had also grown. Now, when I walked through town, I didn't feel small. I felt present. I smiled at familiar faces. I stopped for coffee with my sister. I helped an old neighbor carry her groceries. I was rebuilding something real. And even though I had chosen the wrong path before, I was finally choosing myself. The first few weeks at the new shop went by slowly. The tasks were simple unpacking boxes, arranging shelves, helping customers, but they gave my days a clear shape. That was something I had missed for a long time. Each morning, I left the house with a small lunch and a quiet heart. I didn't expect much. I wasn't chasing anything anymore. I just wanted to feel normal again. I wanted peace. My boss, a woman named Helen, was patient and soft-spoken. She didn't ask many questions about my past. She said I was good with people and that customers liked my calm voice. That made me feel proud in a small, steady way. Aaron visited sometimes. He would drop by with a sandwich or bring me a book he thought I might like. He didn't stay long. He never made me feel like I owed him anything. His quiet support helped me trust again, little by little. One evening, I was closing the shop when a customer walked in late. She was holding a small notebook and seemed nervous. She asked for a pen and a birthday card. Her hands were shaking. I showed her the options and waited. She chose a simple blue card and thanked me. Just before leaving, she turned and said, "I'm sorry. I've had a hard day. Thank you for being kind." Her words stayed with me. That night, I thought about how small kindness could mean so much. I had been through so much pain, but I had also been shown kindness when I needed it most. By strangers. By my sister. By Aaron. Even by Helen. I wanted to give that same feeling to others. So I began to change, not in big ways, but in quiet moments. I started smiling more. I asked customers how their day was. I remembered small details. I listened more closely. And in return, I began to feel more alive. One Saturday, Helen offered me more hours. She said one of the full-time workers was moving away. I said yes without thinking. It felt like progress, like the world was slowly opening up again. My sister noticed the change in me. One night over dinner, she said, "You seem more yourself again." I nodded. "I feel more myself," I said. We didn't talk much about Elliot anymore. She had seen me cry. She had held my hand through the worst parts. But now we were focused on new things, new plans, new hopes. Still, healing wasn't a straight line. Some mornings I woke up with a heavy heart. I remembered how much I had given to someone who didn't value it. I remembered how alone I felt in that small town. I remembered the lies, the distance, the silence. But now, I had tools to deal with those memories. I didn't hide from them. I accepted them. They were part of my story, but they didn't define me. One weekend, Aaron invited me to a book event in a nearby city. It was the first time I left town since returning. The train ride made me nervous, but he was patient. We walked through small streets, visited bookshops, and had coffee in a quiet corner. That day, I laughed more than I had in months. On the train ride back, he looked at me and said, "You're strong, you know." I didn't reply right away. Then I smiled and said, "I'm learning to be." The next week, I got a call from the learning center where I had worked before. One of the teachers was going on leave. They needed someone for 3 months. They asked if I could come back, even part-time. At first, I wasn't sure. I had only just found balance. But then I thought maybe this was the next step. I loved working with students. I missed that part of my life. So I spoke to Helen. She said she would keep my place at the shop and that I could come back any time. And just like that, I found myself standing in front of a classroom again. The whiteboard, the markers, the sound of students flipping pages. It all came back to me. I felt nervous, but also excited. The students were kind. Some were new. Some remembered me. We laughed, we learned, and we built something simple but important. I realized that helping others grow also helped me heal. At home, I started writing down simple goals. Nothing big, just things I wanted to do. Take a walk every weekend, call my parents more often, try a new recipe, read more books. I didn't want a perfect life. I just wanted a real one. I still saw Aaron sometimes. We didn't label what we had. We just enjoyed the time together. And that was enough for now. One evening, as we walked near the river, I told him the full story. About Elliot. About the move. About the silence and the lies. He listened without interrupting. When I finished, he didn't offer advice. He just said, "I'm glad you came back to yourself." That sentence stayed with me, because that was the real journey, not coming back to my town or to my old job, but coming back to myself. The version of me that felt strong, kind, open, and ready to live again. Months passed. The temporary job at the learning center ended, but I was okay with that. I went back to the shop part-time and began helping with a weekend reading group. I started painting again in the evenings. I visited my parents more often. I found joy in small things, sunlight through the window, warm bread in the oven, a good laugh with my sister. I stopped thinking of my past as a failure. Yes, I had chosen the wrong path, but walking it had taught me lessons no easy road could teach. I learned that love isn't just about words or big plans. It's about action, respect, and support. I learned that leaving doesn't make you weak. Sometimes it's the bravest thing you can do. And most of all, I learned that healing is not quick or simple, but it's always possible. You don't need to have all the answers. You just need to keep going, step by step, day by day, and slowly you find yourself again. I hope you have enjoyed the story. Like and comment if you want to hear more soon.